The trial of humanity. The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched endlessly in all directions, its walls made of living crystal that pulsed with different colors depending on the mood of its inhabitants. 12 massive thrones formed a perfect circle around the central platform where 3 humans stood in simple dress uniforms that looked almost primitive compared to the elaborate robes and biomechanical suits worn by the alien dignitaries surrounding them. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood perfectly straight despite having waited for 6 hours. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her weathered face showed no emotion even though she knew that billions of humans across hundreds of worlds were watching this moment through quantum broadcasts. Next to her, Dr. James Chen nervously adjusted his glasses while reviewing data on his tablet, trying to find some last-minute argument that might save their species from whatever judgment was coming. On her other side, Captain Maria Santos kept her hand near her sidearm out of habit. Though she knew weapons were useless here, the silence in the chamber was broken when High Arbiter Velthar rose from the largest throne. The crystalline being stood 12 feet tall, its body made of what looked like living diamond that refracted the chamber's light into rainbow patterns across the walls. When it spoke, its voice resonated through the crystal structure itself, creating harmonics that made the humans' bones vibrate. "Humans of the Sol system," Velthar announced, its words echoing off every surface. "You have been summoned to answer for your crimes against galactic harmony and order. For 200 standard years, we have watched your species spread across our peaceful galaxy like a plague, disrupting the careful balance we have maintained for over 50,000 years. Admiral Rodriguez stepped forward slightly. "We are ready to hear the specific charges, High Arbiter." Counselor Zefka, whose insectoid body clicked and chittered as it moved, rose from its throne. Its 4 compound eyes focused on the humans, while mandibles moved in what might have been disgust. "The charges are numerous and severe," Zefka said through its translation device. "First, you have expanded your territory at an unprecedented rate. Most civilized species take millennia to establish even a dozen colonies. You have claimed over 300 star systems in just 2 centuries. Dr. Chen cleared his throat politely. "Honored Counselor, our population growth required expansion. We followed all established protocols for claiming uninhabited systems and notified the Council within the required timeframes." "Notification is not permission," rumbled Counselor Mordun from his water-filled environment suit. The aquatic being's voice bubbled through the translation system. "You were supposed to request permission and wait for approval. This process exists to maintain order and prevent conflicts. You simply took what you wanted and informed us afterward." "Our people needed homes," Admiral Rodriguez replied firmly. "We couldn't let them suffer while waiting decades for bureaucratic approval." High Arbiter Velthar's crystal body flashed red, a sign of anger that all species in the chamber recognized. "This attitude exemplifies your second charge. You consistently choose immediate action over careful deliberation. When the Krathar pirates attacked your mining colony on Kepler 7, did you attempt negotiation? Did you seek council mediation? No. You sent warships and destroyed their entire fleet within hours." Captain Santos spoke for the first time, her voice hard. "They were murdering innocent civilians. Our children were dying while your mediation process would have taken months." "Violence should always be the last resort," said Counselor Yathmar, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish, surrounded by bioluminescent tentacles. "The Krathar had legitimate grievances about mining rights in that sector. Through proper channels, we could have resolved the conflict peacefully." "How many more children would have died during your peaceful resolution?" Admiral Rodriguez asked, her composure finally cracking slightly. The chamber erupted in alien sounds of disapproval. Clicks, whistles, electronic tones, and subsonic rumbles filled the air as the council members expressed their displeasure with the human attitude. High Arbiter Velthar raised one crystalline arm, and silence returned immediately. "This is precisely the problem," it said. "You value individual lives over galactic stability. Your emotional responses cloud your judgment. You act first and consider consequences later." Counselor Zefka's wings buzzed as it continued the charges. "There is also the matter of technological development. You have advanced your military capabilities at an alarming rate. In 2 centuries, You have gone from primitive chemical rockets to quantum displacement drives. Your weapons technology now rivals species that have existed for 10,000 years. We are fast learners, Dr. Chen said quietly. Too fast, Mordun replied. Such rapid advancement is unnatural. It suggests dangerous ambition and a lack of wisdom that comes with gradual development. High Arbiter Velthar began moving around the circle, its crystal feet creating musical tones on the chamber floor. Most troubling of all is your species' fundamental nature. You are unpredictable, aggressive, and ambitious. Other species follow established patterns of behavior that we can understand and manage. You constantly surprise us, and surprises are dangerous to galactic stability. Admiral Rodriguez looked around the chamber at the alien faces staring down at them. Some showed obvious hostility, others seemed fearful, and a few appeared simply tired of dealing with the human problem. She realized this wasn't really a trial. The decision had been made long before they arrived. What is our sentence? She asked. High Arbiter Velthar stopped moving and faced the humans directly. The Galactic Council has reached its unanimous decision. Humanity is hereby banished from all Council space. You have 90 standard days to evacuate every human settlement outpost and ship from the established galactic territories. Dr. Chen's tablet slipped from his hands and clattered on the crystal floor. Where are we supposed to go? You're talking about relocating over 50 billion people. That is your concern, not ours, Counselor Zefka said coldly. However, we are not completely without mercy. You may settle in the void sectors beyond the galactic rim, the regions of dark space between galaxies that we have declared off-limits to civilized species. Captain Santos stepped forward. Why, are those regions forbidden? Counselor Mordun's aquatic features shifted in what might have been amusement. They are dangerous beyond comprehension. Strange energies, space-time anomalies, and other things that our exploration teams have encountered. Many ships that enter the void never return. You're not just banishing us, Admiral Rodriguez said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was hearing. You're sending us to die. We are giving you exactly what your species seems to crave, High Arbiter Velthar replied. The unknown, the dangerous, the unexplored. If you truly are as adaptable and resourceful as you claim, perhaps you will survive. If not, the galaxy will finally have peace. Admiral Rodriguez straightened her shoulders and looked each council member in the eye. We accept your judgment, she said clearly. But I want it noted for the historical record that you are making a mistake. You think you're protecting the galaxy from us, but you might just be creating something far more dangerous than anything you've imagined. High Arbiter. Velthar's crystal body flickered briefly, but its voice remained steady. The decision is final. You have 90 days. The three humans turned and walked toward the chamber's exit, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind them, the council members began discussing practical matters like shipping schedules and border enforcement, already treating humanity as a problem solved. As they reached the doorway, Admiral Rodriguez paused and looked back one last time. The alien beings were already losing interest, settling back into their thrones to debate other matters. None of them noticed the small smile that crossed her face as she turned away. The evacuation that followed was the largest migration in human history. 50 billion people across 300 worlds had to abandon their homes, businesses, and lives to flee to the dark regions beyond the galaxy's edge. The logistics were nightmarish. Ships designed for cargo were converted to carry families. Industrial equipment was abandoned to make room for children and elderly. Entire cities were dismantled and loaded onto massive transport vessels. But humanity had faced impossible challenges before. They organized with military precision, dividing the evacuation into phases and priorities. Essential personnel and equipment went first to establish basic infrastructure in the void. Then came the bulk of the population in waves, each group carrying what they could and leaving behind everything else. The Galactic Council watched with satisfaction as human ships streamed toward the galactic rim, their sensor arrays confirming that the exodus was proceeding on schedule. Long-range monitoring stations reported the massive human fleet disappearing into the dark energy clouds that marked the boundary between ordered space and the chaotic void beyond. Within 6 months, every human presence in Council space had been eliminated. The aliens congratulated themselves on solving the human problem permanently. Trade routes returned to their traditional patterns. Border disputes that had involved human territories were quickly resolved among the remaining species. The galaxy settled back into its ancient rhythms of slow, careful, peaceful development. But in the darkness beyond the rim, 50 billion humans were about to discover that exile might be the best thing that had ever happened to their species. Masters of the Void 5 years had passed since the Great Exile, though time itself seemed different in the Void sectors. The dark space between galaxies played by different rules, where quantum fields fluctuated wildly, and the normal laws of physics bent in ways that would have terrified the species back in Council space. For humanity, it had become the greatest laboratory they had ever imagined. Commander David Park stood on the observation deck of New Terra Station, humanity's first permanent installation in the void. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see the impossible sight that had become routine for the human colonists. Stars that burned with impossible colors drifted in formations that defied gravity. Streams of pure energy flowed between distant points like rivers of light, and in the distance, the massive construct they had discovered 3 years ago continued, its patient orbit around a star that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. "Commander," called Dr. Sarah Mitchell from her workstation. The xenoarchaeologist had changed dramatically since their arrival in the void. Her hair had turned completely white from exposure to exotic radiation, but her eyes now held depths that seemed to reflect the strange space around them. "We're getting new readings from Site Omega. The structures are becoming more active." David nodded and walked over to examine her data. Site Omega was the designation for the ancient ruins they had found on the 3rd planet of the Nexus system, a world that shouldn't have existed according to standard physics but somehow maintained a stable biosphere in the cosmic chaos of the void. "What kind of activity?" he asked. "The crystalline formations are resonating at frequencies we've never seen before," Sarah replied, pulling up holographic displays of the alien structures. "Tom thinks they might be responding to our presence, learning our technology." Engineer Tom Wilson was humanity's most brilliant innovator, a man who had looked at the impossible physics of the void and decided to make them work for human purposes. His workshop occupied an entire deck of New Terra Station, filled with prototypes, that combined human engineering with principles discovered in the ancient ruins. "The Wanderers are definitely interested in us," Tom said as he joined their conversation. His hands were stained with substances that glowed softly in the station's artificial lighting. "Every time we activate one of their devices, the response patterns become more complex." The Wanderers were what they had started calling the artificial intelligence that inhabited the ruins. Not quite alive, not quite machine. They existed as patterns of information that flowed through the crystalline structures like thoughts through a vast electronic brain. First contact had happened by accident, when Sarah's team activated what they thought was a simple recording device. Instead, they had awakened something that had been waiting in the dark, between galaxies for millions of years. "Have you made any progress with direct communication?" David asked. Tom's eyes lit up with excitement. "Actually, yes. I think I figured out how to interface with their primary node. But it's not like talking to another person. It's more like joining a conversation that's been going on forever." 3 hours later, Tom was strapped into the interface chair he had built, electrodes attached to his temples and a helmet covered in blinking lights lowered over his head. The device looked dangerous, which it probably was, but humanity had not survived exile by being cautious. Sarah monitored his vital signs while David watched the data streams flowing across multiple screens. The moment Tom activated the connection, the entire chamber filled with harmonic tones that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Tom's eyes rolled back in his head as information flooded his consciousness. For 30 minutes he remained, motionless while the Wanderers shared the history of the void sectors. When he finally opened his eyes, they held the same depths that Sarah had developed, as if he had seen the universe from a completely different perspective. "They've been waiting," he said quietly. For millions of years, they've been waiting for someone like us. Like us how? Sarah asked. Curious, adaptive, willing to take risks. Tom sat up slowly, still processing what he had experienced. The Wanderers were created by a species called the Architects, who explored beyond the rim of every galaxy in this region of space. They were scientists and builders, but they were also warriors when they needed to be. David felt a chill run down his spine. What happened to them? They evolved beyond physical existence, became beings of pure thought and energy. But before they left, they built the Wanderers to guard their technology and knowledge. They were waiting for a species that was ready to inherit what they left behind. Sarah pulled up star charts showing the known regions of the void. How much technology are we talking about? Tom smiled, and for the first time since the exile, it was a smile of genuine joy rather than grim determination. Enough to build ships that can travel between galaxies in hours instead of millennia, weapons that can manipulate space-time itself, industrial systems that can convert pure energy into any kind of matter we need. Over the following months, humanity threw itself into learning the architect technology with the same desperate intensity that had driven their expansion across council space. But this time, they had the luxury of unlimited resources and no bureaucratic oversight. The void sectors contained exotic matter and energy sources that didn't exist in normal space. With Wanderer guidance, they learned to harvest dark energy, manipulate quantum fields, and build materials that were stronger than anything in the periodic table. Captain Lisa Torres commanded the first ship built with combined human and architect technology. The UES Prometheus was beautiful and terrible, its hull made from crystallized space-time that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Its engines drew power directly from the quantum vacuum, and its weapons could fire concentrated beams of possibility itself. All systems are showing green across the board, reported her chief engineer as they prepared for the Prometheus's maiden voyage. Tom's fusion reactor is running at stable output, and the Wanderer navigation system is online. Lisa settled into her captain's chair, which was grown rather than built from living crystal that responded to her thoughts and emotions. Around her, the bridge crew operated controls that looked more like works of art than technology. Smooth surfaces that glowed and shifted according to need. "Take us out," she ordered. The Prometheus moved through space like a living thing, its hull rippling with patterns of light as it accelerated to speeds that violated several fundamental laws of physics. What should have been a 3-month journey to the edge of Void Sector 7 took less than 6 hours. They were not alone out there. As humanity spread through the dark regions, they encountered other exile species that had been banished from various galactic civilizations over the millennia. The Kethvar were warrior poets whose entire culture had been built around concepts of honor that the Galactic Council found too disruptive. The Synthesis were beings who had replaced most of their biology with technology, creating hybrid forms that other species found disturbing. But most importantly, they found the Forgotten Ones, survivors of species that had tried to challenge the established order and been destroyed for their efforts. These refugees had been living in the void for centuries, barely surviving on scavenged technology and fading hope. Humanity offered them something the Galactic Council never had: acceptance and partnership. The human settlements became beacons of cooperation, where different species could work together without fear of judgment or persecution. The Wanderer technology was shared freely, and within 2 years a new civilization was taking shape in the darkness. Meanwhile, in Council space, the alien governments were beginning to realize they had made a terrible mistake. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures coming from the void sectors. Ships that challenged their understanding of physics appeared at the edges of Council territory, observing but not engaging. Trade routes began experiencing mysterious problems as human vessels appeared out of nowhere, offering assistance to ships in distress, and then vanishing back into the dark. High Arbiter Velthar stood in the same crystal chamber where humanity had been sentenced to exile, but now the mood was very different. Emergency sessions were being called daily as reports flooded in of human activities that should have been impossible. "They're not just surviving out there," reported Counselor Zefka, its compound eyes reflecting genuine fear. "They're thriving. Our intelligence networks suggest they've established hundreds of settlements and developed technology that surpasses our own." "How is this possible?" demanded Counselor Mordun. "The void sectors are supposed to be uninhabitable. We've lost dozens of exploration teams in those regions." "Perhaps," said a new voice from the chamber entrance, "you simply weren't looking at them the right way." Every being in the chamber turned to see Admiral Elena Rodriguez walking through the doorway. She had aged in the 5 years since the trial, but there was something different about her now. She moved with quiet confidence, and her simple uniform was made from materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid starlight. "How did you get here?" High Arbiter Velthar demanded. "Our security systems detect no ship." "We didn't come by ship," Elena replied calmly. "We came by invitation. The void has taught us many things, including how to step between spaces when necessary." Behind her, Dr. James Chen and Captain Maria Santos entered the chamber, along with several other humans and beings that the council members didn't recognize. The mixed group represented the new civilization that had emerged in the dark between galaxies. "Why have you returned?" Velthar asked. Elena smiled, and it was not the expression of a supplicant or an exile. It was the smile of someone who held all the cards in a game the other players were just beginning to understand. "We've come to make you an offer," she said. "The void sectors contain resources and knowledge that could benefit every species in this galaxy. We're willing to share what we've learned, establish trade relationships, and work together to explore the greater universe beyond." "And if we refuse?" Counselor Zefka asked. Elena's smile didn't waver. "Then you can continue governing your small corner of space while we explore the infinite possibilities that lie beyond. The choice is yours." High Arbiter Velthar's crystal body flickered through several colors as it processed this reversal of fortune. 5 years ago, they had banished humanity to certain death in the cosmic wilderness. Now, those same humans had returned as equals, offering partnership from a position of strength. "What assurance do we have that you won't use your new capabilities against us?" Velthar asked. "The same assurance you gave us when you sentenced us to exile," Elena replied. "None. But unlike you, we believe in the possibility of growth and change. We learned in the void that the universe is vast enough for everyone and strong enough to survive a little chaos." She gestured to her diverse companions. "We're not the same humans you banished. We've learned patience from the Kethvar, precision from the synthesis, and wisdom from the Wanderers. But we're still human enough to remember what it feels like to be judged and found wanting." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Galactic Council had created their own worst nightmare by trying to eliminate what they saw as a threat. Instead of destroying humanity, they had forged them into something far more powerful and unpredictable. "We'll need time to consider your proposal," High Arbiter Velthar said finally. "Of course," Elena replied. "Take all the time you need. We'll be out there in the dark, building wonders and discovering impossibilities. When you're ready to join us in exploring what lies beyond the edge of imagination, you know where to find us." As the human delegation prepared to leave, Elena paused at the chamber entrance and looked back at the alien beings who had once held her species' fate in their hands. "You thought you were protecting the galaxy from us," she said. "But maybe you were just protecting yourselves from who you could become if you weren't afraid to reach for something greater." With that, the humans vanished, leaving only the faint scent of possibilities in the air and the echo of their words in the minds of the council members. In the void sectors, humanity continued to grow and explore, building their civilization among the stars that burned with impossible light. They had learned that sometimes the best response to being unwanted is to become indispensable. And in Madai, the darkness between galaxies, they had discovered that exile could be the first step toward finding your true home among the infinite possibilities of the universe.